Well, good morning. It's Saturday, September 10, 2011. I want to look at a few stock charts. Haven't done this for a while online here, but basically I don't do it a lot because I try and save these for when something is very interesting or different or important, in my opinion. So we have something like that here today. It's been developing over the last week or so, but I think we really have to take a look at a couple of charts, and I think the first one we have to look at is the US dollar, and I'm going to look at it using two different vehicles. One is UUP, which is PowerShares Dollar Index Bullish Fund, and you'll notice that this downtrend continued for quite some time. We ended up with this sideways wedged shape phenomenon happening. The first piece of business really began when the chart was only, for example, that far developed. Then it broke down below that trend line, which could have been very bearish and probably very dangerous, but it set a new low. Then it came up and it broke the trend line, because what we really had is you had a short-term trend line, and let's steal this one for a moment. You had a short-term trend line through these tops. It's broken through that, and it has moved substantially to the upside. Now if you look at UUP, we're right at that place where arguably it's still inside the channel. And I'm going to explain to you why I think channels are less reliable than they were once upon a time. I may have done this before, but I'll touch on it briefly. But let's look at the DXYO. It's the US dollar index. And you'll notice this one has substantially fractured the overhead line. I think this line is really not useful anymore. It was useful here because we had a snapback, but really what's happened is it's been outmoded by that, I think. Not okay. So if we drop this down to here, which is probably a more valid trend line, we see kind of what's going on. Technically, this thing has broken out to the upside. Okay, now we know, for example, that if anybody in the old days at least was looking at this trend line here, as soon as this bottom was formed, actually I'll tell you something, as soon as this bottom was formed here, there would be positions on the short side down here, and there would be positions on the long side up here, because they're waiting for the technical indicator of the trend line being broken. I think what happens now, because so many people look at charts and there's so much computer trading and it's gotten to be a very, very complex problem, is that you have basically a bear raid or a bull raid. In other words, the markets know that there are shorts down here. They go in, they take them out. You see these are the shorts being taken out, because clearly with the dollar perceived as weak as it has been, there are going to be a lot of people sitting on the short side right in this range. I think this is bullish people coming in here, buying out the shorts. They buy, 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 buy. It doesn't matter the volume in this case, because they're just accumulating all that short interest. And then when we get here and we run out of shorts, and all the sellers who want to sell, who have sold, but there remaining some buyers, we suddenly run out of sellers and this thing skyrockets. Now it overshoots this trend line. The overshooting of the trend line could be one of two things. It could simply be the momentum from lack of sellers, or it could be that the buyers and the sellers here are looking at the possibility that there are positions they want to take out above this trend line. So we raid it. We do a bear raid, and you'll notice on lots of charts there'll be, and we'll touch on it. I'll show you a couple others perhaps. There'll be places where the run takes place and it cracks the line. It looks like it collects up a few positions, then it drops back and starts working the channel again. And that's my theory on what happens. I'm not sure it's true, but it's just a theory. I want to take a look at the euro versus the Swiss franc real briefly, because the Swiss franc has been very strong. Euro, lower prices mean a weaker euro in its chart, but there is this bounce back thing happening as well. Does this mean we've seen the bottom for the long term? No, but I do think it's clearly an uptrend, and I think it's clearly a reversal, for at least in the short term. And short term, to me, in this sense, means probably measured in weeks to months, meaning 3 weeks to 4 months type of time frame, 4 weeks to 4 months. Let's go back and real quickly look at a couple of other indicators that I think are real important from my crisis portfolio. Taking a flash look at oil. Oil in a downtrend, no question, at least as far as the U.S. oil fund goes. And this may or may not be a fair representation. If anybody has anything else that they like to use, let me know. I'd be happy to put that in the charts. But clearly we have a downtrend. We have a little up flag, but this has to prove itself as an uptrend yet. I don't consider that to be. It's running about a month long, that little run. Okay, very, very importantly, SPY. What I think we have here is a head and shoulders. I've been talking about this, told people are blue in the face. There's the neckline. Shoulder, head, shoulder, breaks through the neckline, bounces back-ish to the neckline. Very technically standard. Didn't quite make it, and it's starting to pull back again. Now the question is, what's going on in here? Is this accumulation or distribution? And by that I mean, is the smart money accumulating or is the smart money distributing? The create parallel line. Create parallel. Create parallel line. Thank you. Parallel line is here. So now what we've got to figure out is this flagstaff could well be duplicated in a flagstaff that drops the same distance, dropping out of this channel and collapsing down. You notice that there is volume here confirming this as a down move. If it was a down move with decreasing volume, that would have significance, but it is not. Okay, so what I think we need to be prepared for here is a down move in the S&P and the Dow and all the major indexes. Jump over to the Standard Poor's 500 and then measured by Standard Poor's, and same formation. And if we go to PowerShares QQQ Trust, which is also a widely used stock interest, you can see that there's this same phenomenon, a little choppier, but we're snapping back and face the possibility of, well, that's not helpful, face the possibility of a continued decline. As everybody knows, I'm very bullish on gold and silver long term. I like them. However, I think we have to look at gold. And if we're being realistic and not just being optimistic, what are we having here? Looks to me like there's a very good possibility that that's a double top coming about in the short term. It's been choppy, it's been weak, it has not fractured this. We do have the uptrend starting here. We look at this uptrend, draw the trend line. We are still inside that sharp uptrend. That uptrend has broken out of this long-term channel. It would not be shocking to see it pull back. And this is a GLD we're looking at as opposed to an actual gold index. This is the ETF, but it's a good substitute. It would not be shocking to see it pull back to this line. It would not be shocking or even negative to see it pull back to this line. But that would be a substantial decline from the highs that we see here. Very possible. Now, next question is, does silver look similar or does it look different? Well, if we go to SLV, which is the widely traded silver index, we see, we had this big pullback. We've had this this little narrow channel working sideways. We broke out. It became kind of support. I want to point out that we have this fracturing of the trend line, of the support line here, much like I've been describing. It looks like a raid into the where we might know that there were stops or there were positions here we want to take out. Let me just zoom in a little bit here. We'll go to the 3-month picture. Stops we want to take out, so that's coming here. We rush back up. We come back to the trend line. We've got a new trend line now, I believe, forming. However, it does not look weak. It does not look strong. Why do I say that? Because this high is higher than this high. Yes, this low is higher than this low, and that's very bullish. This high not going to new highs in this little time frame is not bullish. I could easily see silver cracking this line, testing that line, and possibly coming back down. We'll go a little wider with this chart so you can see it. Coming back down and even testing this line, which is in the SLV world in the low 30s. Interesting to consider whether or not we've got this long-term formation taking place on the bullish side, or if we're just having choppiness, and very tough to say for sure. So those are my comments. I've tried to make it brief. Thank you for watching.